and her kid, he was probably, I'm gonna say 6 or 7 years old. He had his hand in his pocket with his little uniform, and he would walk like 2-3 steps and then would look at mom, and then 2-3 steps and like, Mom, when are you gonna pay attention to me? And that hurt me. I'm like, I literally was about to roll down the window and yell at her and be like,
welcome to the American Dreamers podcast. I am faceless today or tonight.
wow.
Yeah. So I wanted to do this format because it's just different. And I wanted to be all about you.
It's because you didn't get ready for camera.
Somewhat. But no, truly, I wanted to do it this way because you are the somewhat of an expert in the next topic.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So basically what I wanted to do is talk about a recent show or series on Netflix, Adolescence. I don't think you can watch that because even though there isn't killing, bloody and stuff like that, well, you might be able to watch it. The subject is hard and I felt it like it was really, really touchy because it's about this kid. And by the way, this is a spoiler alert. If you have not watched Adolescence, you may want to stop now and just
Watch it or just hit forward for a little bit. So that
and then resume. But basically, the reason I wanted to talk about this is because it is about a kid and a family, how disconnected they were. The kid ended up getting in trouble with the law. He ended up killing this girl out of jealousy. He was being bullied. His parents were in his life, but they were not present. And so we see that a lot. Like I'm a witness of that, right? Like the way I grew up and everything. And even though my mom was there, my mom was present as much as she could, there was still a void. And you don't get to find out until later on in life, right? So I wanted you to elaborate on the fact that elaborate on the impact of the kids being at home with their parents and parents, quote unquote, being present. But why is it that there's a disconnect, especially nowadays with all the distractions with social media, devices, and all that? And basically, I wanted you to take over. I'm not going to be, speaking much since I'm not present in the camera. But I want you to elaborate on that, if you could, please.
That's a very long topic for one podcast, I have to say, but I'm going to try to make it as short as possible for a podcast, for an episode. I truly believe that us as humans, many times we get into things, into responsibilities, into roles, into seasons of life of doing things without knowing not only the why, but I believe the what for. So I'm going to explain something to you. If I ask you, let's say you're a kid and I ask you, what do you want to be when you grow up? And this is a question that it's asked quite a bit at school. What do you want to be when you grow up? Maybe you get the child to answer, I want to be a cop. Great. Many times the questions at school stop right there. Great. You want to be a cop? Good for you. You want to be a vet? Good for you. You want to be a doctor? Awesome. Good for you. And that's it. And I believe that we shouldn't stop there. We should ask not only why do you want to be a cop? Why do you want to be a teacher? And going back and forth in that conversation with this child, let's say the child says, I want to be a teacher because I like to teach, or because I like my school, or I like my teacher. Usually that's what you get at school. But when you ask this other question, which I usually don't even ask the why, I ask what for. Many people can't answer. If I say, you want to be a teacher, what for? That's a harder question that requires for the person, in this case, the child, to kind of dig in a little bit more. Dang it. Okay, I want to be a teacher because I want to be a teacher or because I like it, but what for? And then they start digging a little bit more into the what for, really. Are you going to leave a mark in the world, becoming a better teacher? Do you want to make sure that you are connected with other children in a way that you were never connected, or, X or Y? My point is that as humans, most of the time, get into, for example, I want to have a girlfriend. Let's talk about this adolescence, series or movie or documentary about this kid. I know that I'm going to probably get a lot of people reacting negatively to what I'm going to say, and that's fine. We can all have our opinions, but this is the fact. Many parents think it's cute or think it's okay or think it's all right. Why not? I did it too when I was their age, etc., etc., etc. Of my son has a girlfriend. Question: do you as a parent even know what a girlfriend is? Definition: yes or no? If you as a parent don't know what the definition of a girlfriend or a boyfriend is, most likely your child doesn't either. 2, let's say you already know the definition. Why do you want to have a boyfriend? It doesn't matter you're 12, you're 15, you're 50. It doesn't matter. Why do you want to have a girlfriend? Why do you want to have a boyfriend? And the question, again, after the why, that maybe you can't even answer, or maybe your answer is very lame, as something like, oh, I just don't want to be alone, or because I want to have a girlfriend. Just because, which is still not an answer. The what for is really important. What for is it that you want to have a boyfriend or a girlfriend? It doesn't matter. And 9 out of 10 people can't answer that. So same thing. When we go into marriage, do you even know what a husband is? Do you know what a wife is? Look for the definition. And don't look for the definition in social media or some definition that has been made up. Because what happens is when we are all deciding a different definition and we're not playing by the same rules, that's where we end up hurting each other. And when we end up saying, well, you're doing it against me. And I'm like, I'm not doing it against you. It's just, this is how it is. And then you think that's how it is. And now there is 100 different opinions on what a husband is. So a husband, we need to know what it is by definition, what he's supposed to do, and why do we even need a husband? Let's use, for example, driving. Many kids at the age of that child in the movie, they want to start driving. Oh, I want to start driving. Do you know what driving is? Many of them are going to be like, duh, of course I know what driving is. Hello. I'm going to get behind the wheel and I'm going to go fast and I'm going to look good in front of my friends. And, I'm going to feel like I'm on top of the world. That's not driving. That's not the definition of driving. And then let's say you find the definition of driving. Why do you want to drive? Do you need to drive? Do you want to drive? And what's your why behind you wanting to drive? And then what for? Because if the what for really digs into, you know what? I do want to show off. And if you really want to show off, that's why we see day in and day out in the news where it says 17, 18, 19-year-old accident, total car, kill somebody, run somebody over. It all comes down to all of us, regardless of the role that we're in, understanding the definition of what we're getting ourselves into, whatever role it is, the why behind it, but you cannot stop in the why. You need to continue the what for. And if you cannot answer the what for, you may not be ready to get into that. You may not be ready to go into driving. You may not be ready to change careers. You may not be ready to have a boyfriend, to have a girlfriend, to get married, if you don't know. So going into the disconnect that you were at, this is a really long answer. That's why I told you one episode is going to be hard. But going back into why this is happening and the disconnect, and especially social media, is that as parents, and I can even tell you, I'm one of them. Because when I got pregnant, I didn't know what was a mom. I didn't know the definition of a mom. I didn't know why. I, in fact, didn't even want to be a mom when I became a mom. That was absolutely not planned. My daughter is my biggest blessing today. But when I was going through, I'm a new mom, what am I going to do? Even saying that sentence of, I am a new mom, I didn't know what mom was. I didn't know the definition of a mom and the what for. Like, what is it? Not only the why do I want to be a mom, but what for? For what? You want to be a mom for what? And everybody has a different reason, and you really, really have to dig deep. And if you know really your what for, you need to connect continuously with that what for. Because let's say I would have planned my daughter and I would have had my definition of what a mom is and why I wanted to be a mom and what for. Being a mom, raising a child, means that I am responsible for everything that child does. I cannot just like give birth, pop a kid here, pop a kid there, and then just let school, society, an iPad, TV, the nanny, the childcare, church, friends, whoever, raise a kid. And then when that kid does something that I don't like, I have no right to go in and yell at that kid. Why? You were not there. You were not present when that child was learning that behavior. Now that is after the learning and that child is doing what he or she already learned, now you're going to have a problem with it? No, it can't be. You're either present or you're not. Now, this is not for parents, like if you have not been present, this is not an invitation for you to completely check out of your kid's life. No. What I'm saying is if you have not been present, if you have not been there, and your child is already doing something wrong or many things wrong, this is an invitation for you not to check out. This is an invitation to let go of your phone, let go of everything that you yourself are doing wrong that sometimes is unconsciously, but sometimes you know you're doing it and you're just too lazy to get things back on track. And learn, maybe this is your time for you to go back to the definition of what is a mom.
Well, I want to interrupt there because when you say lazy, like I don't want people to get offended by that, because it's like it feels like it could get perceived as we're pointing the finger at, you know what I'm saying? So I don't want, because it comes across as self-righteous, and that's not the point. That's not the point here, because none of us are perfect, right? So I don't think people really, they might get lazy, but that's not what they want to do. They don't want to be checked out. I don't think any parent, for the most part, understands being checked out, what that really means. You know what I'm saying? Because especially now, like where you have parents and families, when you go to a restaurant and they are all checked out. That's a complete different subject, but they're all checked out because they have the iPad. The kids have the iPads. The parents are on the phone. So no one is really talking to each other. And there's definitely a disconnect. They don't see it. And that's the thing, right? But I don't think people want to be lazy about it. I think it's some of them are, but I think they want to be there. They want to be present. And this is going back to the serious adolescence. The parents, they were good parents, hardworking parents. They were there. They were loving parents, but there was a disconnect going back to the social media and the devices and the distractions. And so I don't think they wanted to be lazy. They were not being lazy. And just like them, that was like a real life situation, right? And they presented that scenario because it happens day in and day out.
Let me ask you something. If I can give you $100,000 tomorrow and you have the option to work really hard or to stay home and do nothing, which one would you choose?
I'll take the $100,000. I can take a couple of days off.
Okay, I'm going to give you $100 regardless.
Oh, $100?
$100,000 regardless.
I was going to say $100. I'll stay home for 20 minutes.
And I'm going to give you two options. I'm going to give you the $100,000 regardless. And I'm going to give you one of two options. You have to choose either one to receive the 100,000. Both of them lead you to the 100,000. You either go work really hard for 24 hours tomorrow, or you stay home and do nothing. Which one would you like? Which one would you choose? I'm going to give you the $100,000 regardless.
Yeah, you go the easy route.
Exactly.
Most humans would.
Okay. By default, you're telling me nobody wants to be lazy. I'm sure nobody wants to be lazy, but by default, and I said it in, another day, by default, as humans, me included, as humans, we are decaying into what's easy and what's, it's hard to work on something. It's hard to work on ourselves. It's hard to work on bettering ourselves. It's hard to work to get a raise at work. It's hard to even get up and get ready. It's hard to even learn, because you don't become a better parent just out of nowhere. You have to learn how to become a better parent. And that requires maybe counseling, reading a book that teaches you, maybe going to other groups of parenting or going to conferences of, parenting. That requires effort. And that's what I'm calling lazy, because we can all be lazy if we're still going to get the same result. Hey, I already popped the kid. All I need to do is take them to school, let the school raise them. When they come home, I just give them the iPad. Hey, I'm raising them. I just need to put them to bed. And tomorrow we do the same thing. That is lazy. I'll tell you why. The parent that is doing that, I'm not judging them. I'm not. The parent that is doing that, one, does not know any better. However, it is not their fault that they don't know any better, but it is their fault if they don't do something to get better.
Like it's never too late.
It is, if you are so happy and proud and you just feel this joy when you look at your child and you're like, wow, I have done everything in my power for this kid to be amazing, to be as intelligent as possible. It does not have to be the most intelligent. This is not about a competition. I'm just saying, what are you as a parent? By the way, please look for the definition of parent, okay? What are you doing as a parent to become a better parent? And I'll tell you that most of the time, 99% of the time, we're just expecting our children to be good children, yet we're not teaching them how to be a good child. How do we do that? By showing them, by example. So most of our life, we're just telling our kids, don't do that. Don't do that. I told you no. Shut up. I told you to be quiet. What's wrong with you? You're stupid. Blah, blah, blah. All these things. However, if we're telling them no something, we have to tell them, hey, buddy, we don't do this. You know why? Because we're good people. Because we are, whatever values you have given that child and that you're showing them by example. Because you cannot tell them to be amazing kids and you are yelling, for example. You cannot tell your child, stop yelling, and you're yelling. You know what I mean? Or, I told you to pick up your clothes, but then your room is like, hello. You know what I mean? You really need to make sure that you teach your child not with words, but with example of how they're supposed to behave, what they are supposed to be and to do. And if you cannot show them by example because you are not that person, then the fixing, quote unquote, of the situation doesn't start with you fixing your child. It starts with fixing you so that you can teach your child. If you get in the car and you are flipping everybody off, but you expect your child to be respectful to other people, and that's what we do many times. You know, my child is 17, and I've never said this in public, but it pains me so much when I meet other moms that tell me, you know, we're talking and then all of a sudden I say, yeah, I have a 17-year-old girl. And this is their words and this is their expressions and, you know, everything.
The aura. Yeah.
They are, yeah. They're like, oof, 17. Oh my, how are you doing? Like they want to check on me if I'm alive or something like that, like something terrible happened to me. Not because my child is this amazing creature that, you know, is out of nowhere, out of this world. Is that from a long time ago, I'm not going to say from day one because I didn't know from day one, but from a long time ago when I figured it out and when I became aware of the mom that I did not want to be. Believe me, learning how to be a mom did not start with me learning how to be a good mom. It started learning I do not want to be this type of person. I do not want to be this type of mom. And so with me starting with knowing very well in my core what I did not want to be, I had to make an effort, extra effort, almost supernatural effort, because I didn't want to do it. I had to do it because I made a decision to become a really good mom, the best mom I could for that child. And when I say best, every single child has a different need and has a different purpose in life and has a different path. And what my child needs, it's very different from what your child may need. My child may like music. Your child may love astronauts. You know what I mean? I'm not necessarily the person that is going to go to, you know, Jacksonville or like take my kids to just watch the rocket to go on space and whatever.
The rocket launch. Yeah.
Exactly. I will do what I can in my power and a little bit more for my daughter to be supported in what she needs. That does not mean that I'm going to tell her yes to whatever she wants, because she knows and you know that out of 10 things that she asks, she probably gets 2 or 3. And it's not that I say, no, you can't have it. From an early age that I understood and I became aware of what I did not want to be, it became a process of me becoming and learning to become a good mom for her. That meant, I told you, conferences, videos, books, church, you know, people that were ahead of me in that journey for me to learn. When my daughter started asking me, Mom, can I eat ice cream? I learned this, and this is a tip. If you want your child in the future to have problem-solving skills, for them to think for themselves and make good decisions when you are not present, you need to stop giving them the answers. It's just simple. But again, that's not something that it's like duh, but for some reason it's not obvious. It wasn't obvious to me, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people that just heard it are like, huh, I didn't even think about that. And it's okay. You didn't know, now you know. Period.
Well, it's like when you ask the child, so you come home from work and they ate lunch and or whatever, and they have the plates and dishes all over the place, and you're like, I told you to get the dishes and put them in the dishwasher, water, blah 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 blah, and then you go and pick them up yourself. So
yeah,
like you're
that's
doing
another thing,
right? Yeah, like you're doing the work for them. You're just complaining, you're yelling and screaming instead of going back and say, hey, listen, I don't appreciate you doing this. Please go ahead and and put them in the dishwasher. That's just an example. But I wanted to read the definition of the parent that I searched. It's pretty cool. Being a parent means being responsible for a little being, meaning that that being has no experience, has no, like, it needs guidance, right? And then the other one is educating them, reassuring them, helping them find their place, giving them reference points and limits. This is the role you take on when you become a mother or a father.
A parent. Yeah.
So, yeah, it's crazy because we all have made mistakes. Trust me, I made plenty of mistakes. But even now, like when the kids are older, the job is not done because they will be your responsibility until the day you die, one way or another, in a way. Because even I know, like, I call my mom for advice. So it's just natural. Like, I'm always going to go back and ask for advice, and I think some of that is being lost now with the newer generation.
Yeah, I know. But, even listening to you, that you call your mom, many of us, lose connection with our parents. But this is one of the things that I always say. If as a parent, you get so fed up or frustrated or just feeling the blank, whatever the word is, for you to like deal with this child, that you always have to send them to childcare. And not only because you have to work, you have to work, you need to send your kid to childcare. Like, what are you going to do, right? Unless it's bring your child to work day. But just because you don't want to deal with the kid, because the kid is too much, or because you're tired and you just don't want to handle, don't want to deal with the kid, so you just give him the iPad or whatever it is. I respect it. I don't like it. I don't believe it is the right thing to do. A lot of people may disagree, and that's okay. However, there is a song that it's called The Circle of Life. And I truly believe that the life is a circle. Like, now you can be 30, you can be 40 and can have your child, your baby or your teenager, whatever. And when we become 70, 80 or 90, I don't necessarily believe that this is like a rule or, how it's going to be. But I'm just saying, just think about it. The amount of love and dedication and in everything that you did for this child, even the love and patience that you had with them when they just got you crazy because they did something wrong, or they, you had a bad day and they spilled the milk and you just reacted in a very negatively explosive way. Let's just think about when you are 80. Would you like your child to let go of the phone so they can look at you when you wouldn't let go of your phone when they're little? I see so many people, at the restaurant, the parents on the phone and then the kid. Last week, actually, and I forgot to tell you this, I was driving home and, coming home, we passed by a couple of schools. And so I saw a mom that had picked up her son from school. It was 2-3 o'clock. And I saw her walking on the street with the phone. Like, she was walking and on her phone. And her kid, he was probably, I'm going to say 6 or 7 years old. He had his hand in his pocket with his little uniform. And he would walk like 2-3 steps and then would look at mom, and then 2-3 steps and like, Mom, when are you going to pay attention to me? And that hurt me. I'm like, I literally was about to roll down the window and yell at her and be like, drop your phone. Nothing in your phone is so important or more important than the time you're losing with your child. The next time you look around, he's going to be 18. He's not even going to hang out with you. He doesn't want to hang out with you. We're so focused on the phone and what's happening on social media and what's happening with, you know, pretending to live a life that it's not true. And we're here and we don't know we don't realize the life and the power that we have in front of us. Then when we get old, then we say, but I was so good with you. I was a good parent. When you didn't even find the definition. The people that are listening to this got the definition because you read it. But how many of us are really willing to find out for ourselves? Not because you found out, you know, you read the definition, but are we really willing to put it in practice? And if it takes for us, because a lot of times many people tell me, you know, I don't know, it's just this addiction, whatever. Yes, the dopamine. Just remove the apps from the phone. Take a break. And what if every time that your body unconsciously or your hand unconsciously wants to pick up that phone, instead of doing this to the phone, you do this to the hand of your child? What if when you pick them up from school or you drop them off, instead of yelling at them, you don't know how many parents I see when I drop off my daughter at school. I see so many parents already yelling at their kids on the way to school. And I'm like, why? It's a daily thing. It is a daily thing. They're going to go out there to face this world where they may get bullied, where you're just living in with all these people that they now call quote unquote friends or classmates. But at the end of the day, they're strangers and they are underage.
And they're all being influenced by, you know, whatever's going on in their environment. And so it's a whole bunch of kids with different experiences at home.
Yes.
And they all come together and
Yes.
it's a mess.
It is a mess. Even my daughter, many times she would come home with like a new word or a new saying or a new something. And I would look at her and I'm like, where did you get that from? Because I did not teach you that. And I was so in tune with everything about her that I'm like, I'm not going to allow for that to happen. You need to remove that immediately. But I caught it right the moment it happened. If I would have just let it go for years, you know what I mean?
And
all
that's
of a
what
sudden,
happened.
Yeah.
That's what happened on the series.
Okay.
They were there, but because the parents were not in tune with what's going on around their kids and the kids' lives and their friends and all that, it caught them by surprise, really, when it could have been prevented. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? And it was so painful, even though it was all acted, because, you know, it's not based on true events. But it does happen. Those stories do happen every single day around the world. And the disconnect that the parents had with their kids, it's what really caused the kid to just snap. Like he couldn't take it one day and then he just killed the young girl. And so, number one, no foundation, right? No connection and no supervision at all. But mostly not being in tune, because like you're saying, if you are in tune, and I see it with our daughter. Sometimes I'm like, man, you're like a private investigator. But no, it's just that you know exactly the behavior, the ins and outs. So by the time something it's a little off, you can recognize it right away. But that only happens if you are in tune, and it doesn't happen from one day to the next. It happens over time, day in, day out. Since she was a child, and so now as a young a teenager, soon to be a young adult, it's like, my God, to me it's amazing. Now that I'm speaking and I'm thinking about it at the same time, it's like, wow, yeah, you put in the work, and that's how you are able to identify those things.
And that's what I'm saying. Are you willing to put the work as a parent? Or are you like, I'm just going to let the school do it. I'm just going to let the friends do it. I'm just going to let the iPad do it. And that is what I call lazy. Because you can, but then you can't complain.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And, you know, the thing also with being a parent and going back to the definition of why you need to learn how to, you need to learn the definition of a parent is because at the same time, for you to be a parent, there has to exist a child. You cannot be a parent of and no child. You know what I mean? Same thing. if you're a husband, there has to be a wife. Like the role, there has to be correlation. Is like if you're a supervisor of whatever
Yeah.
you're saying. So if you're a parent, there has to be a child. You need to learn the definition of a parent, the why and the what for. And at the same time, because it's a correlation and it's a relationship, you also have to learn at the same time, what is a child? And many of us in our generation, and actually older generations, just because we didn't have, I mean, we have more access, but older generations didn't have access to the internet and looking for, like, the only things that we had was like the library.
Resources were limited back then.
Very limited. I mean, you go into a library and yes, there is like millions of books in there, but try to find the parenting one. You know what I mean? Go to the P. But what if it's not called with a P? You know what I mean?
The art of parenting. So you'll go to the A. And the
No, you can go to the
go
T.
to the alphabet.
The art.
Oh yeah, that's right.
See? So it's so crazy. And then who would have time to go to the library with a little one, with a toddler that is like running around and screaming, and everybody at the library is, shh. You're like, sorry, my toddler, I'm learning how to be a parent. You know, you wouldn't see that. Nowadays, we do have the resources, but what I was saying, or my point with that was, you know, older generations didn't have the resource to know how to be a child. And much of the mental health issues, and not only mental health issues, much of the relationship issues, even as husband and wife, or even at work, or many people that are like, I suffer anxiety and I don't know what. Like, all these things have a root. It didn't start yesterday. All of that has its root of when you were a child. And being a child is not, oh, well, before I was 18. Unless you learn how to be a child, you cannot learn how to be a parent. Because being a parent, being a good parent, requires that you understand that being a child includes learning, messing up, making mistakes, learning about the world with their senses, depending on the age they are. That's another thing. You give birth, even before, like inside the womb, you have to learn, okay, at what month does my unborn child can hear? So I can start speaking to them. So I can start putting Mozart or whatever music you want to them. At what point in time do they start giggling inside the womb? At what point? And so you have to learn, like, month 1, month 2, month 3, so on. My child did not weigh until the 9 months, I'll tell you that. She came out at 7 months. But from there, you have to learn what happens from the moment they are born into this world to age 1. Like, what is being developed in their brain, in their body at that time that you as a parent need to support. I do hear a lot of parents that are, you know, they have like 3, 4, 5, 6-year-old kids, and they yell at them so much, and it hurts me. Again, because they have not learned what I just told you, the parent-child, you know, understanding the definition, what it is, blah, blah, blah. But I'll tell you in a few words or sentences, I hope, what's going on. You will always get frustrated at not knowing why something is not working because you don't know what it is or why. You don't know what it is or why, but you're not even doing your due diligence to find out. The problem is that parents, when I ask them, like, why are you mad at the kid? Well, it's just that I don't know why they don't listen. I've told them 10 times and it's like, why don't they understand? I don't tell them necessarily, but I'm going to tell you now. 1, under 7 years old, children do not have consciousness. They don't have logic. That does not exist. Under 7 years old, everything is emotional and everything is in their unconscious. Everything. So for parents to say, well, I don't know why they don't understand, there's no understanding. It does not exist.
That part of the brain has not developed, right?
No, everything is emotional. If you tell them, you're going to get cut here, like you're going to hurt yourself, I told you no. You cannot tell them like that because that part of the brain does not exist yet. You're the one that doesn't know. It's not the kid. You have to learn how to be a parent, and that requires for you to understand what part of their brain is not yet developed because you're talking to the wall. All the child hears and sees is a parent that is yelling, and that is a threat for them. That is a threat. And talking about the disconnection and the parents yelling, especially with parents being on the phone or I'm so busy, and we are so busy. I promise you, we're super, super busy. All of us are super busy. But if you can only take even 10 minutes of your day to connect like that, to look into your child's eyes without a TV, without the phone, without any other distraction. If you have 10 minutes at least of good, pure connection with your child and you hear them, you listen to them, those 10 minutes a day are worth way more than 5 hours at Disney or the whole day at Disney. That is not even connection. I took my daughter when she was a baby to Disney, and I ask her now, and she has no clue I took her to Disney. She doesn't even remember I took her to Disney. So there you go. I give you that. You really need to, give me water, please. You really need to make sure that you connect with your child, because sometimes the only time that our child gets our attention, the only time that we talk or we direct ourselves to our child, and the only time that we look at them in the eyes is when they did something wrong and when we're scolding them and when we're putting them in timeout.
When they're in trouble.
When they're in trouble. So what does that tell you? When the child doesn't have logic, but when it's unconsciousness, it's the programming. This is the programming. If that's what you do, if you actually look at your child, look at me, I told you, because they got in trouble, they did something wrong. In their head is like, wow, it's actually the first time my mom looks at me.
Finally, I get
Finally,
that
I
I'm
get
seeking.
Exactly. Finally, I get the attention. Finally, I get the attention. And children crave, they need attention because you are the only world. You are their home. You are their protector. They need connection. They crave connection. So if the only way they can get connection, even if it's a negative one that makes their heart race and they get worried and anxious and all that stuff, even if it's like that, but they get to look at you in your eyes because that's the only time that you look at them in their eyes, what do you think they're going to do?
Do it again.
I'm going to drink water. Thank you for answering.
It's such an interesting topic, and the next session will have the business part, how that will affect the business and your purpose and how to overcome all that. And even though you didn't have, or we didn't have a great childhood and whatever, it's like never too late, right, to transform your life, to turn things around. And so that's going to be our next topic. Mark it down, subscribe, follow, share, comment the American Dreamers Club podcast. So until next time, you want to say something else?
The bump. No, I do have to say something because I know that I don't care, to be honest with you, if I get hate or not. I was telling the truth and I was telling the facts, and I just wish that somebody would have told me the facts when I was raising my child and when I made so many mistakes, because I made so many mistakes. I just became aware of them, hopefully, at least as soon as I could. I wish I would have done it sooner. But all I said during this time was really from a place of love and truth and pain, to be honest. So don't take it as like I'm judging whatever you're doing. I'm not. I'm not judging you. I am inviting you to become aware of what you're doing and what you may not be doing. And once you become aware, I'm inviting you to take action upon that. So,
and that's something that you know, not to cut you off, but to piggyback on that, you're still doing that. So it's like you're not perfect, right? You still try to develop yourself, self-improve. As you grow as an adult, your role, and that, just like I was saying before, your role does not stop. So there's nothing more beautiful that even as an adult, you have grown and have overcome challenges and obstacles and things like that, and still self-improving. What a better way to pass that along to your kids who may not be kids anymore, you know? So as you grow, they continue growing. So again, your responsibility never ends. So you continue to share that with your kids. So it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. So yes, man. All right. Until next time. Boom.